Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kickoff LCRC webinar. I'm Jonathan Osei, relatively new NCAP team member, and I just wanted to say, everybody, this is going to be recorded, and as you come in, just enter your name and where you're located in the chat, and maybe why you decided to join the webinar today. I'm just going to wait till we get a critical mass, and I'm going to hand it over to Tiffany.
All right, so it looks like folks are still logging on. Hello, Community Action. Welcome. I think it may be late morning for those of you who are on the West Coast and beyond, further west, and it's more so in the afternoon for those of us who are moving further east. Again, we want to thank you for joining today's Learning Communities Resource Center Kickoff webinar. I am Tiffany Marley, Senior Vice President for the National Community Action Partnership. We're just so glad that you are here. Happy New Year. We want to acknowledge that a lot is going on in the world around us, in our country and in your communities, with your agencies, with your people. And so that makes us even more grateful that you took the time out to sit with us and join in today's conversation for a while. And so with that said, I want to go ahead and invite us into a moment of what we call land acknowledgement. And we do this because this is an important aspect of our equity focus inside of our work here in the Learning Communities Resource Center, but really the partnership and the network at large. Ultimately, every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who have contributed their hopes, their dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes and hope for a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. At this time, we would like to invite all of you to engage in the practice of land acknowledgement. The team has put some directions into the chat for you. So they provided you with some language that you can use, or you may choose to utilize your own language, but it's your opportunity to participate with us as we are convening this webinar to acknowledge our indigenous ancestors who came before us. And so I'll begin the acknowledgement by saying this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Lumbee people, because I'm in North Carolina. People, I pay my respect, to the Lumbee people, and I pay my respect to the elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And so feel free to offer up your statements or to click on your link and at least find the name of the peoples whose land you sit upon today, to just give recognition and acknowledgement. The other thing that we would like to invite you to do with us today is to center yourselves in something very important to all of us, and that is the promise of community action. And so we invite you to just join in this affirmation today, wherever you are, to read to yourself or say it out loud with me. This promise asserts community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we're dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. So let's get into it. And we're going to get into it by offering up some introductions. And so one of those introductions is the team, the Learning Communities Resource Team, who has really played a pivotal role in not only putting together today's webinar, but who plays a pivotal role in providing training, technical assistance, resource curation, and a lot of behind the scenes activities to make the learning experience provided by LCRC available to all of you. So you all have already heard from me. I am Tiffany Marley, Senior Vice President for Practice Transformation. In a little bit, you'll have an opportunity to hear from my wonderful colleague, Lily Seals, who is the Director for Practice Transformation. Also on our team and present here today are Amy Roberge. She is our Senior Associate for Learning and Dissemination, and also Peter Coyne and Andrew Osei, who serve as our Program Associates for Communications and Dissemination. Not with us today is our colleague Tiffany Day, who is our Director for Whole Family Approach Innovations. So now let's take a moment to look at our agenda. So during the course of our time with you today, we will engage in an overview of the Learning Communities Resource Center. We will talk about upcoming LCG opportunities. Let me double back. We'll talk about this whole concept of transformation and why it's important as we engage in our approach within the Learning Communities Resource Center proper. We will talk a bit about Learning Communities Resource Center resources and then upcoming events. And so with that said, I look forward to jumping into a bit of an overview. And so many of you have heard about us for a while, in that the Learning Communities Resource Center itself has been in existence for, I would say, thereabouts 7 to 8 years. And this important project is funded through a cooperative agreement through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Office of Community Services. And so they are the funder and really our co-partner, as it were, in the facilitation of the Learning Communities Resource Center. And I'll invite the team to go back to slide number 10 that just says the learning community, that has the little garden. That's it. Thank you so much. And so in essence, OCS, as we call them, fund this cooperative agreement. And really the intention of the Learning Communities Resource Center is to serve as the hub within the CSBG, or the Community Action Network, to support the identification, adaptation, and implementation of innovative and evidence-informed services and strategies to improve results on the individual and the community level. And the way that I like to say it is LCRC does what it does to ultimately build your capacity as community action leaders to fight poverty more effectively. And we are so passionate about this work and our opportunity to go deeply into some of the what that you all do day to day and provide you with important resources to do that effectively. As we look at the next slide, I've been asked to talk a little bit about our national CSBG, or our national community action theory of change. And this theory of change has at its foundation really this mission, or this call for us to be a network of over 1,000 high-performing community action agencies that include state associations, state offices, federal partners, supported by CSBG to mobilize communities to fight poverty. So the foundation of everything that we do is just really deeply rooted in this notion of fighting poverty um, effectively, mobilizing to fight poverty effectively. And so within this theory of change, you see at the top our national goals, which many of you have seen before. Goal one being individuals and families with low incomes are stable and achieve economic security. Number two being communities where people with low incomes live, are healthy, and offer economic opportunity. And three, people with low incomes are engaged and active in building opportunities in communities. And so, what I like to say as it relates to the work of LCRC in relation to this theory of change is we provide the oil, so to speak, for the wheels. And those wheels, in our opinion, are all of those very important um, services, outputs, activities that you all engage in to achieve that ultimate goal of of fighting poverty for your families, for the communities that you serve. And so those services or those strategies, they span from everything from employment, education, cognitive development, income, infrastructure, asset building, health, social, behavioral development, housing, civic engagement, community involvement. And so you've seen over the course of the years as LCRC has done its work, and even currently as it does its work, we identify focus areas that really help to strengthen the things that you do to help move or mobilize individuals, families out of poverty. So as we look at the next slide, I've already made reference to our funder of our cooperative agreement, who is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, Office of Community Services, their Division of Community Assistance. That's a long statement, but it's important to name that because, again, they not only provide the resources for us to do this very incredible, innovative work, they really are partners with us in this effort. And as we look at the next slide, this kind of gives you a more vivid picture of kind of where we have been historically in terms of some of our focus areas, our core approach, and what our current focus areas or our current programs are. And so if you look from a historic standpoint, we have focused on areas from everything from whole family approach, integrated services, results at the community level, health intersections, decreasing homelessness, community economic development, and the like. It's been several focus areas. We've tried to be as adaptive as possible to the network needs, as well as what is happening in the human services field to bring you all the best resources and the best tools to do what you do on a daily basis. And so our approach involves this. It's heavily focused in peer centered learning. So we've had lots of learning community groups and communities of practice focused on evidence-based and evidence-informed practices that work. I'll emphasize that. We have been involved in developing curriculum or resources that help to shift organizational mindset and to help to transform practice. Additionally, we work closely with subject matter experts, really all over the human services field, to really be a direct resource to our local agencies who are part of our various learning community groups. And then we get joy out of what we call development, curation, and dissemination of resources informed by all of the learning and the experimentation from the learning communities, and also found from all the information that's happening in the broader human services field. And so our team spends a lot of time reading, researching what's happening across the various dimensions or those categories that were mentioned, and really bringing that information together in a meaningful way in our learning community groups, in our cohorts, and also in what you all likely hear and receive in the partnerships e-newsletter, on our website, and various other modalities. And so looking at this our current focus, which we're going to say a lot more about this, but I'll just go ahead and name it, that our current focus areas are housing opportunities expansion and homelessness prevention, building resiliency using trauma-informed approaches, achieving equitable outcomes for families, whole family approach, health intersections, and exploring tribal partnerships and opportunities. And so if we look at the next slide, it just gives you a picture of our overall, what we call learning community framework. And so during the course of this year, you will have an opportunity to hear from us and receive information through the Partnerships National Webinar Series. We facilitate what we call Webinar Wednesdays. And so typically it is on Wednesdays, 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time, that the content from this project is being shared or disseminated to all of you. We also, as I mentioned earlier, engage in the process of curating and sharing resources. We have our peer learning cohorts. And the other thing that I'll emphasize is the LCRC team has just a special opportunity to really invest our effort in customized technical assistance for local community action agencies who are working on various innovations or focus areas. And so to give you a little more insight on our framework, and you can stay on that slide. So if you go back to that slide, we have open learning community groups. And with our open learning community groups, there isn't a need to like fill out an application or join a group. Typically, we will promote whatever the webinar or the convening experience is. You will have an opportunity to sign up for that and engage in what we call an open learning series. Then we also have what we call intensive learning community groups. And with our intensive learning community groups, those groups are groups of agencies who usually apply as agency teams, and there's an application process. They get accepted into that intensive learning group. Usually that group is over an extended period of time, typically about 12 months at a minimum in most cases, where agencies are doing some really deep work in terms of thinking more deeply and learning around their respective innovation, doing some design planning or planning that is grounded in our performance framework as the Community Action Network, and then engaging in some experimentation around those plans, and then finally having an opportunity to report out that learning to the larger network. And so that is our intensive learning community group framework, which is application only. And then we have communities of practice, which are not as directly involved with the Learning Communities Resource Center. They too are doing some very intensive work, and we often draw on some of the learnings from our communities of practice to inform some of our larger LCRC activities. And so with that said, I will take a breath there and let us look at our next slide. And Lily, is it time to pass on to you, or should I keep going?
I can take it from here.
Awesome.
Great. Well, I believe it's good morning, depending on where you are, and good afternoon, or as I like to say, greetings to everyone. Thank you for being here with us. As we look at the learning community, we have we have, again, as we talked about, open learning community group opportunities, as well as intensive learning community groups. Our open learning community groups are health intersections, housing opportunities expansion and homeless prevention, and building resiliency using trauma-informed approaches. You're going to hear more about that. You will be introduced to our subject matter experts as well. And then our intensive learning community groups, achieving equitable outcomes for families. You may have actually participated in some of those activities, implementing innovative practices. This is a Center of Excellence highlighted initiatives, and this is new for us. And coming soon, we're really also excited about this. and you can just anticipate receiving additional information about exploring tribal partnerships and opportunities. So stay tuned to your emails when that comes up. So we'll just move forward. So you've heard Tiffany talk about the Learning Communities Resource Center and our LCGs, and really what is the magic of the Learning Community Group? Well, all of those wonderful things that you've heard, it is all free. It is free. You have access to field experts, technical assistants. You will learn from peers across the nation. You will hear from subject matter experts, and this is all at no cost to you. And we understand that sometimes in our budgets, our professional development line item may not always be as robust as we would like, but that is not an issue for you because you do have the learning community where you can learn and have access, and your entire team will have access. You are able to connect with people, organizations, and systems around a shared goal, and you will learn and grow together. The power of peer learning is such a wonderful thing. We think about when we work in our agencies and we have a peer that we want to bounce ideas off of. You have an opportunity in a learning community group potentially to bounce this off of another agency. So you're really expanding your network beyond whether it is your community, whether it is your state. You're going to have an opportunity to engage and connect and grow within your team, but also with other agencies. And this helps to improve your ability to achieve rapid progress. So all of that is a part of the magic. And then what comes out of all of this? We're really talking about transformation at all levels. We have agencies that have participated in the learning community groups that have leveraged their learning, and they have secured millions of dollars in new funding. Millions of dollars. It also helps when you are able to learn more and your team learns more and you're able to work with families in an intentional way. You know, there's nothing quite like when you're working directly with a family and you feel helpless in that situation or you're not sure how to make those connections. And that can decrease employee morale. So when you're able to access tools to help, that increases employee satisfaction. You're able to gain increase gains in client outcomes, and you're recognized nationally for evidence-based practices. You also, because of your learning, you can emerge as a peer expert and serve as a resource to others in the Community Action Network. And we're going to move to the next slide. Now, we talked a little bit about open learning community groups and intensives, and this is a chart that really just gives you some information, just kind of an at-a-glance view of what the difference is between an open learning community group and an intensive. So the main difference you will see is you'll have some piloting and implementation support for intensives. You will have your monthly peer sharing and learning groups, and customized technical assistance. Your timeframes are the same, but you have access to so much more when you're both in open and intensive. You have access to the National Webinar Series events. An example is of what you're a part of now. We're going to talk a little bit about Community Action Academy and other peer-to-peer learning opportunities. So we'll move forward. So let's talk about an upcoming intensive learning community group. We're excited to talk about implementing innovative practices. So this learning community group is really geared towards our highlighted initiatives. So there are approximately 65 highlighted initiatives, and they would have received an email. So this is a targeted application process, and we can move forward. And our highlighted initiatives receive this information, and let's talk a little bit about what highlighted initiatives are. So we know that community action agencies engage in innovative and high impact strategies when we're working with families. And with the Center of Excellence, working with the RPICs, or Regional Performance and Innovation Consortia and state associations, we were able to identify 65 of those local agencies. So this learning community group will move forward. Really is going to focus on providing an opportunity to those highlighted initiatives to maximize their implementation of their respective innovations. So they will participate in peer learning or peer sharing. They will have deeper connections to evidence-based and evidence-informed research, and immersion in tools that will strengthen how they communicate, impact, and transformation stories. When we think about community action, and I know in my community, it's always like community action is the best kept secret, right? But we do such powerful and impactful work that it's important that we tell our story. So this will certainly be an opportunity to talk about that, to highlight that, and have the words to have the structure to talk about that in a meaningful way, to elevate all of the great work that the network is doing. All right. So we did send out the information if you're a highlighted initiative. So an email was sent out. If you are a highlighted initiative and you need additional information, or if you would like to ask, certainly let us know. Our contact information will certainly be at the end, but also see my colleagues are in the chat that are also doing that, that are also providing additional information. So yes, please check that out. But as we look at application logistics, we did extend the deadline to February 3rd. So we would love for everyone to apply as soon as possible. That will be going into MLTC. But again, if you have any questions, certainly to let us know, and we'll move forward. So we have an ongoing intensive learning community group. This is our Achieving Equitable Outcomes for Families. So to talk a little bit about this learning community group, it is not an opportunity to apply. So because that has already happened, but we wanted to tell you because there's still an opportunity for you to participate. So what is the Achieving Equitable Outcomes for Families? And if you can't apply, why are we talking about it? Well, this is talking about or referring to using racial healing circle, the racial healing circle practice as a tool for bridging differences, bridging across differences. How can we work with our families in a more human-centered way? We really want to hear from family voice, right? We want to hear about family voice. We want to make sure that our services that we provide are really the services that our families need. And how do we know if we have not asked them? So we want to engage and activate. And I want to say that again, we want to engage and activate that. And the racial healing circle practice is a way to do that. This also works as we look at our community, right? Because it also helps to create pathways for collaboration and alignment with our community partners and stakeholders as we look at what systems level transformation work, because we can have that work and the work that we do within our agency, but we also know that our families live and work and exist outside of our agency. So we want to make sure that we're also engaging our community and looking at those differences. So we have an existing cohort that, or a learning community group that is going through Achieving Equitable Outcomes for Families. We're so excited. If you were at annual convention, you would have participated in our racial healing circles. And we wanted to take this opportunity to let you all know that we will have this as well. So if you're going to MLTC on Tuesday, February 1st, please join our racial healing circles. And some of you may say, hey, I've been, I've had this circle experience. I may not need to attend because I've done it already. Every opportunity to participate in a racial healing circle really deepens the experience. It deepens your learning. Every time that I've been in a circle, it has just enlightened me and moved me in a different way. And that really is the part of the the experience of participating in a circle. So if you are attending the MLTC and you are interested in attending, if you have or have not participated in a racial healing circle, we wanted to make sure that you knew, please, it is a life-changing experience, but it's also an ongoing life-changing experience. Okay, we'll move forward. So now we're going to talk about our available open learning community group opportunities that are coming up. So we're going to talk about health intersections. So we know that we've heard so much about the social determinants of health, why that is important. We focus on family and community level strategies that address barriers and leverage connections within the health sphere, right? To address that, we want to ensure that and promote the health and well-being for everyone. Our subject matter expert for health intersections is Dr. Dana Long, and she works for the University of South Carolina. I'm in South Carolina, that's not what I meant. San Francisco, Benoist Children's Hospital in Oakland, California. She is a primary care pediatrician. She has been there for over 20 years. She has dedicated her career to eliminating childhood inequities that lead to poor health, financial, and educational outcomes for families and young children on both individual and population levels. Some of you may have experienced our Health Intersections convening last year that we had that really focused on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And I will ask if one of my colleagues will drop that link to that landing page so that you all can access those resources. What we are looking at certainly for this year is we are building on that. We are going to have another Health Intersections convening, looking at trauma and resilience, informed inquiry for adversity, distress, and strength. It's called the Triads Framework. What you will learn about is relational healing, strategies for assessing and addressing ACEs. It really looks at this from, again, a clinical approach, but it is a holistic approach where you will learn why it is important to learn about ACEs. So if you are a community action agency that is a federally qualified health center, this is definitely an opportunity for you. If you are also a community action agency that has very close relationships with your health department or other health professionals, I would still strongly encourage you to attend to learn because there are so many benefits, and we see how adverse childhood experiences impact us as impact us certainly as children, but also as we become adults. Another very exciting opportunity for the Learning Community Group is, and just in general, the Learning Communities Resource Center really gives access to subject matter experts. Dr. Long has created an implementation course or guide for how to implement ACEs Aware. So looking at, how you can conduct ACEs screening, information about, it's really amazing. So you can go through that course and then you will have access to her for office hours. This will begin in February. And again, we'll send this information out. And you will be able to ask questions to schedule time with Dr. Long. So this is one-on-one to learn certainly more about ACEs. If you have any questions about ACEs screening or the implementation of ACEs, it's an opportunity to have one-on-one time with Dr. Long. Okay, we're gonna move this forward. I've talked about that, so I won't go back. I won't go through that again, but we'll look at our next, building resiliency using trauma-informed approaches. So this focuses on building emotional resiliency and healing through trauma-informed approaches to promote well-being at the individual, agency, and community levels. Our subject matter expert is Dr. Denise Shervington. She is the president with the Institute for Women and Ethnic Studies. if you have been a part of any of Dr. Shervington's, she's held a convening, she's had sessions at annual convention and MLTC. She is certainly a powerhouse. Her career, she has had an intersectional career in public health and academic psychiatry. So she really talks a lot about resiliency. So really, as we look at kind of building on ACEs, as we look at how can we have trauma-informed approaches. So as we look at everything that we're dealing with the pandemic, how it impacts our staff, right? Our team, how it impacts our clients. How can we ensure that we are building resiliency within our organizations, but also building resiliency and healing as we work to serve our families. So the upcoming learning community group opportunities there, again, very similar. We have our national webinar series. So we will host our resiliency and healing webinars, and also having workshops at annual convention. And if you're wondering, how do I access National Webinar Series? If you are on this webinar, you received an email, or one of your colleagues may have forwarded you an email with a registration link. So you are now on our email list. And if it was forwarded, you can also, you can put your information in the chat. You can also come to our website. Because we will post all of our webinars also on the website. So I will ask one of my colleagues if they would make sure that they just drop our website in the chat as well for everybody. All right, thank you. And our next opportunity is housing opportunities expansion and homelessness. So this really focuses on all of the housing challenges and opportunities. We had a webinar series last year because we knew just how much the pandemic has impacted families. So certainly looking at rental assistance and all of those things. So we plan to continue that this year. Our partner, our subject matter expert on this and partner is Sharon McDonald, who is with the National Alliance to End Homelessness. So we worked with her to coordinate different webinar series. We can move to the next slide. We are going to do that again, where we look at homeless prevention and rehousing. We do know that those are some of the biggest needs within our network. So we are again going to have homeless prevention and rehousing webinars, information and resources that we're going to certainly share with the network, as well as workshops at annual convention. So again, similar to how you access everything, how you've accessed this webinar, you will receive the information when those webinars are set. You also have our website where we also post all of our webinars, upcoming webinars. So you'll have that information just as soon as possible. So I now am going to turn it over to my colleague, Amy Roberge.
All right, well, thank you, Lily. And thank you all again for joining us. So we wanted to shake things up a little bit, and we are going to start a poll. So we are just interested in learning where you all are at and how you may like to be engaged in some of these programs and initiatives ongoing throughout the year. So I will kick that off as we continue with our presentation. All right, and while you all are completing the poll, we also just wanted to highlight one of our resources, which is Moodle, the Community Action Academy. So we have a lot of great resources on there. Some new ones are family-centered coaching, courses on Roma, some information on health intersections. So we have a lot of great courses and new ones coming up as well during the new year. All right, it looks like we're getting some good responses in the poll. So it looks like there's a mixture. A lot of you are interested in achieving equitable outcomes, attending the health intersections convening, also looking forward to joining future learning community groups. And then it looks like the majority of you are also interested in the Community Action Academy e-courses. So thank you all for participating in that. All right, and as we move forward, we want to highlight a few resources. Going along with Whole Family Approach, we also have our Whole Family Approach Institute resources, as well as our Whole Family Approach design briefs. So we will certainly send those resources and those links out as well. And as Lily also mentioned before, we have our calendar of webinar events on our website. So definitely stay tuned for all of our upcoming webinars. And as a reminder, the MLTC conference is coming up February 2nd through the 4th. And as mentioned, the racial healing circles will take place on February 1st. So to recap, here are some upcoming LCRC events. February 3rd is the application due date for the Implementing Innovative Practices Learning Community Group. Then February 2nd through the 4th, MLTC. May 5th is the Health Intersections convening. And then we have additional learning community sessions during annual convention, which will be August 31st to September 2nd. So just to conclude on what to expect this year for LCRC and the years to come. So promising, proven, and our best practices, innovative methods of addressing poverty, experimentation, implementation of new ideas, access to resources to support anti-poverty approaches, lessons learned from the field, increased accumulation of knowledge, improved data collection, shared learning and mentoring, and also rapid solution development. So feel free to also share in the chat if any of those stand out to you or which ones resonate with you. And so now that was a lot, so we'll pause and to see if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put in the chat and our team will do our best to answer them.
While we wait for those to come in, did want to let everyone know, I know we've talked about having some convenings, particularly our health intersections convening, and wanted to let everyone know that that is virtual. So again, you will receive an email launching that. So absolutely, that is virtual. So wanted to let you all know that, and did see the email about will the slides, will we send slides out? So we definitely will have slides, and the recording will be emailed to everyone. Again, very similar to what you received in terms of information about the webinar. We also do a webinar follow-up. So I feel like I have answered some of these questions. So yes, you will have access to the slides and the recording. That will again come out to you all via email. As we look at just a little bit talking about time commitment, I know particularly for our open learning community groups, you know, that is the national webinar series. So, you know, it is essentially, or the health intersections convening. You know, those are, again, on Wednesdays. They're normally approximately about an hour, you know, and you also have access to our website. So for those webinars that you may miss, you're able to certainly review those webinars. So, you know, we also just want to make sure that everyone recognizes, we recognize that the pandemic has really, it's been a lot for staff it's been a lot for community action agencies who have been on the front lines of this in being reactive and caring for their communities. So we are working to make sure that we are flexible, as Tiffany has placed into the chat for everyone. We want to make sure that this works for you all and that we're responsive in that way. So this is a respectful learning process, and we want to support you as you support our communities and do this important work. And I will turn to my colleagues to see if are there any questions that I may have missed? I do not see that necessarily, but I do want to say, again, thank you all for attending. We appreciate all that you do for the communities that you serve, and really, honestly, as a nation as a whole, right? Because we are a family, we're the community action family. So thank you all for being here, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. So thank you. Everyone take care.